Hello again, this is Instructor Williams. I am the technology instructor for the Antioch Public Library District. I'd like to thank you for watching our YouTube channel today. In today's video, we will be going over PowerPoint 2016 Intermediate Part 1. The objectives for our video today are learning how to insert images and text boxes, moving images into text boxes, changing the background colors of the slides, aligning the images and text boxes, creating WordArt, and inserting shapes. Inserting images and text boxes. The first thing we want to do is open up PowerPoint. So we're going to come down to the Start menu and choose the PowerPoint 2016 slide. And we're going to do a blank presentation. It always starts out with a title slide. And once we've created our title slide, we can move on to a new slide. And in this one, we will insert an image. We're going to get rid of this preset text box. And the way we do that is we find the perimeter line, and our cursor becomes a 4-arrowed crosshair. We'll click on that once, and we can click delete, and that text box goes away. So to insert an image, what we want to do is come up to the Insert tab in the red area, and then follow the groups, Slides, Tables, Images. Since we're inserting an image, we're going to go to the Images group, and we're going to choose Pictures, because this will pull from the pictures on our computer. And then we want to scroll down to Tech Class, and then I'm going to come to PowerPoint 2016 Intermediate Pics. The first thing we're going to open up is the file called Book and Pen. Double click, and it comes into the slide. I'm going to resize that, and we're going to talk about how to do that here in just a moment. And now that we have an image in our slide, the next thing we're going to do is create a text box to give information about this image. So what we want to do is come back to the Insert tab, follow the groups till we get to Text, and the first option in that group is Text Box. If I click on it once, I move my cursor away, we can see that it stays shaded, which means that is the option that we are selecting. I'm going to come over to the white area next to the picture. I'm going to depress the left button on my mouse and drag my text box to the shape that I want, and then I can enter the information through typing. And there we have it. That is how we insert an image and a text box. Moving images and text boxes. If we decide that we want to rearrange or move the elements on our slide, we can do that. If I think that maybe this picture is a little too big and it needs to be shrunk down and maybe moved around a little bit, the first thing I want to do is just simply click the left button on my mouse while the cursor is inside the picture. You'll notice I get these little white circles on the corners and in the center of the image. I can choose to resize this by coming to one of the corners. If I want to shrink it, I would depress the left button on my mouse and drag my cursor toward the center of the picture, and you can see that it shrinks the picture in size. The reason we do the corner option is so that it keeps everything in an aspect ratio. If I use the ones in the middle of the picture, like at the bottom or at the side here, it will elongate the picture and make it look distorted. For example, now it's more elongated, everything is stretched out, and it doesn't look as neat and crisp. So I'm going to quickly undo that by clicking Control Z and getting it back to the size that I wanted it. Now that my picture is a little bit smaller, maybe I want it in the middle. One of the good things about these new PowerPoint presentation programs is that whenever you move it around, you get these dotted lines to tell you what they are aligned with. So if I come left and right like this, I can see this red dotted line going right down the middle of the picture, and that's telling me that it is right in the center of this slide horizontally. Now I can move it up and down a little bit, and I can get other red lines that go left and right to tell me that it's centered vertically. So here I have a perfectly centered image. And I can do the same thing with my text box. I can click once in the text box, and I get this dotted line around it. I can hover my cursor over the line until it turns to a four-pointed arrow. I can depress on the left button on the mouse, and I can now drag this to a different spot. I can make it a caption below, and if you see here, if I set it just right, I get that dotted red line going up and down, which says that this text box is aligned toward the center of the slide. I can do the same thing with the title text box. I can highlight it if I wanted to, and I can use the paragraph function here to center the text in the middle. Or I could do a right justify or a left justify or even a block text. So we'll just go with center for now. And that's how you move images and text boxes. Change the background color for our slides. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new slide by coming up here to the Home tab, coming to the second group called Slides, and just simply clicking New Slide. So here we have a new slide. We can add text. Now we have a title on the slide and we have some text on the slide. We can change the background color of this slide. We do that by coming up to the Design tab. The first group is the biggest one, and that is to change the entire theme of the PowerPoint presentation. And we're not doing that today. We're just changing the background color of this slide. So we're going to come to the very last group over here where it says Customize. And we're going to come to Format Background. And we get a little option window here on the right hand side. The first thing that we can choose from is how it's going to fill. Is it going to be a solid fill, a gradient fill, a picture or a texture fill, a pattern fill? So we're going to go with a solid fill. And then the next thing we want to do is choose the color. So we're going to hit this drop down arrow here next to the paint bucket. And we have a color palette. Say we wanted to go with a light green color. I would come to this last column here and choose a light green color. And we can see that it changes that slide to a light green. If I wanted to change that again, I could come over here and maybe choose a pale yellow. We'll look at some of the other options here next. So I'm going to come over here to the slide number 3, and I'm going to duplicate that slide so I don't have to create everything all over again. So I'm going to come over here to the left area, make sure that the number 3 slide is highlighted in red. I'm going to right click on my mouse. I'm going to come down to the second area and do the second option, duplicate slide. See here, number 3 and number 4 are now the exact same slide. So I'm going to change number 4. First I'm going to come in here and change this to 4th. And we're going to change the background color to a gradient fill. And you can see here it starts as a light blue and it gradiates to a white at the top. Here we can choose preset gradients. Do a green, we can do a yellow. We can choose to do linear, where it goes this way. Or we could choose to do radial, where it radiates out this way. And we can choose the angle, or the direction if we want it. We can make it radiate down to where it gets lighter at the bottom. You can make it radiate from side to side, where it starts dark on the left and gradiates lighter on the right. So we can change the gradients in many, many ways if we would like. Here we have a multicolor gradation. And that's how we change the background colors. We can do pictures and textures. So this kind of gives it a fabric type texture in the background. Aligning images and text boxes. When it comes to aligning images and text boxes, we'll create a new slide here. We have some really wonderful tools that help ease up that process. So I'm going to shrink this text box down to about here. I'm going to insert some more images. So I'm going to come to the Insert tab, come to the Pictures. We're going to insert the map, the old and new. So now we have two images. When you insert them at the same time, they're both highlighted, so anything you do to one, it'll do to the other. So what we want to do is click outside of the pictures to deselect them, and then click on one, and that way we can select it individually. Since they're so big, we want to resize them to be a little bit smaller. This one we're going to rotate. I'm going to do that by clicking on this curvy arrow at the top, depressing the left key, and then dragging it 90 degrees clockwise. And we can shrink it down to size. Now the good thing about putting these images in, it's just like the text box, and it's just like the image that we did here, where I can click on this, and it'll tell me with that red dotted line that it's right in the center. What PowerPoint also does is, in addition to the dead center of the slide, it can also tell you its alignment with other objects in the slide. Say, for example, I click on the map here. I can move it up and down. If you notice at the bottom, I get a dotted line that tells me that the bottom of this map image is lined up exactly with the bottom of the book and tablet image. And if I come to the text box and click on it, I can see that the outline for the text box goes into this picture, which we don't need. So I'm going to bring that up, and I can move this text box around. And if you notice, if I bring it down right here, there's a red dotted line that goes across the top that says it's lined up with the top of the map. I can bring it down some more if I wanted, and get it to line up with the top of the image of the book and tablet. I can move it left and right until I get this up and down arrow and the right, which tells me that it is aligned in the center of the slide and that it is also aligned with this text box for the title. There's an alignment there. So it really goes a long way in helping us align our things for more visual appeal, to make it look more balanced. So here I'm going to move some things around so I have no dots. And I have an option to align things en masse. The way I want to do that is to make sure all of the images that I want to align together are highlighted or selected, like this text box here. And the way that I do that is I click on my first object, image or text box, and I get the circles on the corners in the middle. I want to hold down the control button on my keyboard. While I keep it pressed down, I'm going to click on my text box. And now you can see I've got the circles on the perimeter of this image here, and I also have the circles on the perimeter of my text box. If I keep the control button pressed, I can come over here to this third image and I can click on that, and you notice that they are all selected. Then what I can do is come up to my ribbon. Now we're still in the Home tab, see? And I'm going to follow these groups till I get to Drawing. And the second option in Drawing is Arrange. Now I can just click this, and it'll give me a drop-down menu of how I want things to be arranged. I could bring items on top of another. If I wanted to do a layering thing, I could send one to the back, But with alignment, we're going to come down to this third area, position objects, and we're going to do align. And we're going to align this to the bottom. What that means is that the bottom of all of these objects are aligned together. You can also redo the alignment where they are aligned at the top. I'm going to go back and put it at the bottom and explain what you just saw here. Here we see everything aligned toward the bottom. With alignments, PowerPoint usually picks one item to be the reference point for the alignment. I'm going to come up here and align this to a top setting. It's going to pick the object that is the highest to be the reference point for the top alignment. So we can see here this is where the map is. It sits a little bit higher than both the text box and the book and tablet image. So if I come to here and I come to align and align to the top, that serves as the reference point for the alignment. So everything's aligned to the highest point of the images. You can also do the same thing with the left and right alignment. So if I move this here, if I move this down, shrink it up a bit, if I move this here, shrink it up a bit, I can highlight all of these and we can do an alignment to the left. And what that's going to do is it's going to use the furthest left edge of all of my objects as the reference point for everything to be aligned. And since we don't have a lot of vertical space, up and down space, it stacks the pictures and text box on top of each other. Now this is where the other part of the arrange function comes in handy. I can highlight the text box, which is clearly on the bottom and is hiding underneath this picture. I can come to the arrange, and I can, since that's the only thing that's highlighted, that's the only object that I'm dealing with, I can choose to bring that to the front. And it gives us access to the lettering. Now it is kind of an issue because it's so dark that we can't see it, so I can highlight those letters and I could change the color. But if I move that around, we'd have to go back and redo the coloring to make it readable. So that's simply how you do arrangements and alignments with images and text boxes. WordArt. WordArt is another one of those fun visual things that we can do with PowerPoint. It makes the content more visually appealing or more eye-catching to maintain our attention. So let's start with a new slide again. And we're going to get rid of that text box, and for this title we're going to call that one WordArt. Center that up. And we're going to come into Insert. We're going to follow the groups till we get to Text, and then we have WordArt. And hit this arrow right here and it gives us a drop down of different lettering styles for words. So I'm going to click on this one here, which is kind of a three-dimensional A with orange shading, and it creates a text box and we type our text right in there. And as you can see, it gives the text a little bit more whimsical appeal. If I wanted to alter that a little bit, I can highlight it, come up to WordArt Styles, hit the drop down menu here, and I have Format Shapes on the right hand side. With the shadow, I can change the size of the shadow. I can insert a blur function. Remember, this is all under the shadow here. I can change the angle of the shadow, which gives the appearance of moving the light source. And I can choose a distance between the shadow and the WordArt. In addition to the shadowing of our WordArt, we can come to a reflection. And this gives us the ability to have a slight reflection, if you notice at the bottom here, almost like it's standing on a mirror or a pool of water. And we can choose a solid fill, a gradient fill, and we can add blur to the reflection. We can add distance to the reflection. In addition to reflections and shadows, we can choose a glow function. Increase the size of the glow, Increase the color of the glow. And the transparency of that. Then we can choose soft edges if we wanted. The 3D format, we can end up beveling our text so that it gives a three-dimensional look to it. Do a bottom bevel. We have lots of options with our WordArt to change the way the text appears. So that's all under the text options function for WordArt. We also have the shape options, which deals with the text box itself. So if I come to shape options, I can choose a preset for that so that the box now looks shaded. I could do the background color. I could do a solid fill. I could do a gradient fill. I could change the gradient fill. I can do a preset gradient, alter the transparency, the brightness. I could do textures in this background. I can choose a different texture if I wanted. I could alter the shapes and the shadows, do the size and properties, or we could even do a picture. So we have a lot of options with our WordArt to change things around if we like. Inserting shapes. The last thing we're going to look at today is how to insert shapes into our PowerPoint. Because shapes help us make diagrams, they help us make points, makes things more visually distinctive, visually interesting when we're giving a presentation. So to do a shape, we're going to create a new slide. I'm going to go ahead and delete this small text box here. We're going to add the word shapes to the title text box, and I'm going to insert shapes. The quickest place that we can find the shapes, if we're in the Home tab, is under Drawing. We have this little box right here that has a ton of shapes for us to choose from. We use these black arrows to choose. For this particular exercise, I'm going to choose this fat arrow here. It's pointing to the right, and it's shaded up here. So I'm going to come down into my slide, pick where I want to start, the upper left-hand corner, depress my left button on the mouse, and drag it to where I want it. And voila, we have a shape. So I've got this arrow, and if you'll notice, we have the circles on the edges here. Most of them are white, and that is about resizing the entire image. But then we have a yellow circle here at the top of one of the arrow points, and we have one on the upper left side of the arrow. And what those yellow ones allow us to do is change the width of parts of the shape. So if I come to this yellow one on the left, I can move it up and down. If I move it down, it makes the shaft of the arrow more narrow or fatter. And then this one up here alters the shape of the arrowhead. So if I click on that and I move it to the right, it makes the arrowhead smaller, thinner. If I bring it back this way, it makes the arrowhead fatter. So I can choose the shape of the arrowhead that I want. If I want to adjust the angle of the entire arrow, I can use this curly arrow here, and I can rotate just like I did with the images. So I can make it point to something that I would like. For example, I can put a text box here. And I can put that right at the point, and we've inserted a shape. I'm going to take this and we're going to save this document to our desktop, and it's PowerPoint 2016 Intermediate. And that's it for PowerPoint 2016 Intermediate Part 1. The summary of today's contents includes inserting images and text boxes, moving those images into text boxes, changing the background colors, aligning, using WordArt, and inserting shapes. Once again, this is Instructor Williams, and I would like to thank you on behalf of the Antioch Public Library for watching our videos. For more technology-related videos and other Antioch Library content, please click the subscribe button.